Haribol, Hare Krishna. Very, very happy to be here with all of you on this wonderful occasion of the gathering at the Manor and all other devotees who are together here to discuss and get inspired on how we could give out these beautiful books of Srila Prabhupada to as many people as possible. But before that, I must comment on the introduction that he gave about me. I don't think I'll fit into that big introduction that was given, and I am a very small person. And I'm extremely happy, although I'm small, to be associating with all of you, very dedicated Sankirtan people who are allowed to distribute the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. One thing he forgot to mention in my title is that I'm trying to be a servant of Krishna. He gave me all other titles, so I thought I'll just mention that. Today, I'm just going to be a servant. You're all wonderful, enthusiastic devotees. I can see, I saw the few clips of people, how deeply they've thought about Sankirtan and what you've planned inside and how systematically and methodically you're going about it. I am also here to take inspiration from all of you, how to expand book distribution. I shall be sharing with you some of my insights today. So thank you very much. And while I am offering my prayers, if I can share the screen. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagra Jatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Rita Shri Vishakanditanscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Haribol and Hare Krishna. So I will briefly try to bring some light to the session today. And it's got such a beautiful title, Live to Give. I was so inspired by that. And equally inspiring is the fact that today is a rhyming 12/12/2020. I was, just trying to put on the dates, and I found that, it's also rhyming. It's poetic, date, I should say. And true enough, some of the muse in me is also being stirred because I know I'm reaching out to London and other places in the UK, and I'm feeling, I remember some of those nice literary poetic days in a younger life. But here we are to discuss something very important. I am putting on this quote of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the Adi Leela. Therefore, I order every man within this universe to accept this Krishna consciousness movement and distribute it everywhere. And I'm so happy to be here. I always look upon London and the Manor as a sterling example of wonderful outreach with different types of programs for a very varied, heterogeneous audience of locals, plus the Indian community, plus amongst that, a lot of other categories and classifications. Like I've been contacted by Yamuneshwari Devi Dasi, who's from this part of the world, And I knew her from her very young days, and we taught her Bhagavad Gita in school, and she took it up from the school days, and I'm very happy to see that she has grown nicely in that wonderful community, and she is reaching out and preaching to many, like many of you are doing. And this is exactly the great order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We are trying to do our best. The title Live inspired me to remember this shloka from the Bhagavatam. Do the trees not live? Do the bellows of the blacksmith not breathe? All around us do the beasts not eat and discharge semen, from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.18. So we are definitely having a different understanding of living. This is a very derogatory, disparaging remark made by Shukadeva Goswami in the Bhagavatam. And definitely by the mercy of Prabhupada, in this world, we are not part of those type of people who live to simply take something away from this world materially. And look at what's happening to the world. Look at the unbridled exploitation of nature and the climate change, and how much we have taken away from what Krishna has given us without knowing anything about the repercussions, without knowing anything and looking back in retrospect and regretting how much we've taken away, and the type of economy we have, the type of consumerism that is promoted. It's all about living to take. It's up for grabs. Grab it. That's the type of life that the world is living. And there are others who give to live. I mean to say that there are others who actually do sacrifices. They do many portions of the great, wonderful religious texts in a hope that they will have successful material lives. And their giving is mainly meant for their living, so that they will have successful gratification. And there are others who actually, you have to give in certain places in order to survive, to exist. So many huge amount of the people who exist actually give to live, because people are extorting from them taxes, money, their life, 16 hours of work per day, etc. And in India, if you come, you got to give under the table to anybody if you want anything done. That's give to live. But here Prabhupada has shown us with a sterling example how to live to give. He gave us the example of Ranti Deva in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we know of many philanthropic, altruistic people in this world who materially give also, and they live a very glorious life. But the best of all are those pure devotees who actually live simply to give. That's the example that Prabhupada has taught us. And what does that mean? When Prabhupada said, distributing Krishna consciousness is the greatest human welfare. And Srila Prabhupada did not stop at just giving Krishna consciousness. He actually gave himself to the whole world. Under the large umbrella of giving himself to the whole world, he gave us his books, he gave us the holy name, he gave us temples, he gave us so many things. But most important of all of those giving that he did culminates in his giving us his books, because his books were very dear to him. And he spent a lot of his time and energy, because this was a direct instruction to him from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Srila Prabhupada, in the line of great acharyas, following the example of all those great acharyas, and following the spirit of Lord Chaitanya, who was the greatest of all givers. Obviously, Krishna, if he decides to give, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate, He is the greatest of givers. And following in the line, what exactly Lord Chaitanya is saying that he is giving? We know that he is giving us his mercy like nothing. There's an amazing understanding of what Lord Chaitanya is really giving, which some of his very, very close associates knew, what he had decided to give. Chirat adattam nijagupta vittam sapremna nama mritamati udaraha. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita is mentioned, Chirad adattam. Dattam means to give in charity. Adatta means never before given by anybody. Nobody can ever give that. And it has not been tried by anybody. If at all anybody can give that, it is Krishna himself. So it's called adattam, never before given. Nija Gupta Vittam. Why? Because Nija Gupta Vitta. Gupta means very confidential, private. Vittam means your treasury. Because from his most confidential treasury, from the depths of his treasury, Nija Gupta, Nija means very deep inside. Nija Gupta Vittam, Swapremna Namamritamati Udaraha. He is giving love for himself in the form of the holy name. That's why he is Ati Udaraha, extremely merciful. Because who would actually want to open up his treasury? Each one of you are grihastas, many of you, and all of you have some savings. Some have more than just savings. Some have, a treasury right inside your house, and you have it locked nicely. In India, at least, all the household ladies have got this huge bunch of keys hanging down the sari from the hip. And that contains everything, the jewels, the diamonds, the rings, everything, you name it, all that stuff in the treasury dip. And never can you imagine any one of them open up that locker and call everybody on the roadside and say, here is my diamond necklace, here is my diamond earring, here is my everything for you. Come on, take it. Nobody's going to do that. But it's mentioned here that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is reaching deep into his treasury. Nijagupta Vittam, Swapremna, love for himself, is distributing without any consideration. So he's the greatest of givers, the foundational giver. And following in that line of giving and giving, all the great Goswamis and all the great Acharyas writing right down, we will sort of discuss that history. Coming right down to Prabhupada, Prabhupada gave himself. Because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur requested it of him. Great personalities do that. They can afford to do that. Jesus Christ gave himself up on the cross. Bali Maharaj, Atma Nivedanam, gave himself to Krishna because Krishna cornered him, forced him into surrender. In this way, Haridas Thakur gave himself. In the same line of giving, that great treasure is being handed down. And Prabhupada also gave himself to us in this day and age, in the now. So this is a great treasure from the treasury of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that is coming down as the holy name. And the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all those wonderful books derived and written by Prabhupada, they all contain this great treasure of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, love of Godhead, prema. And in each one of those books, there is that potential for awakening that love of Godhead inside every soul who comes in touch with Prabhupada's books. So these are not ordinary books. They are not just books. They contain the greatest of treasures. So Prabhupada said, everything is in my books and more. Lord Chaitanya's treasure in each one of these. That's why he took so much pains to write these books and put all of this inside his book. And it was very dear to him. Every time a book came, he relished that it has been published and it will descend on humanity and influence each one of them who picks it up. And he was immensely happy every time he would see his books. You can see this beautiful expression on Prabhupada's face. I get very happy to see Prabhupada. As soon as you can distribute his books, you're pleasing him so much, because this information is contained within those books. It can completely revolutionize a person's life. Tatvad visargo janataga viplavo yasmin pratishlokam abadhyavati. Janataga viplava, it can revolutionize the life of a person. Because for so many janmas, bahunam janmanam, somebody is roaming around in this world and he encounters a book of Prabhupada. What a momentous occasion. What an amazing incident in his life. And then he takes a complete U-turn. His life takes a total U-turn and it changes forever. It changes forever. When Prabhupada was asked by one of his disciples, I'm not remembering exactly word to word verbatim the conversation, but he was asked that what will be happening in the future, in the moment and in the world. So Prabhupada looked into far ahead and said, in the future, they'll talk about me. They'll talk about me as an elderly man who came and changed the course of human history. And this is how it's going to happen, through his books. And each one of you is going to take part in the transcendental plot, which Prabhupada said, I've hatched a transcendental plot. And the key protagonist in that plot of Prabhupada is his books. And he planned to distribute them and drop them everywhere, in every conditioned soul's lap, in every place, in every language possible. This is a very huge, all-embracing, all-encompassing vision that Prabhupada had in a plan. His transcendental plot was not just any ordinary plot. And why did he have to plot? Because he said he was plotting against Maya. And Maya's deep illusory plot that is always pervasively gripping human society, he had to cut through that. And to cut through that, Prabhupada said he has hatched a transcendental plot, and it was his books. With these books being dropped everywhere. So he took great pleasure in his books being produced. He supervised it, translated it day in and day out. So these are such valuable commodities when we take them and drop them. This is no ordinary event for any of you, any of us all over the world, to be taking a book and giving it to somebody. You're taking part in an amazing event that is being witnessed by the entire parampara, including Prabhupada, right up to Lord Chaitanya, and have no doubt about it. I once witnessed a beautiful, I'd gone for a BBD conference in South Africa, in Durban, and somewhere in Mauritius, I think, I don't remember exactly, that we had a drama put up by a devotee on book distribution and book distributors. And on the stage was lined up, the background was on a huge, sort of a table was Lord Chaitanya on one side, Prabhupada on one side, and Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the Goswamis, and everybody in the background. And the front ground was all these devotees moving around doing kirtan and in the temples and distributing books. And the third level down was, people actually on the street, you take this book, it's about yoga, it's about you, and it's, lots of them spread out like that. And it showed that Lord Chaitanya and Prabhupada and all of them were seriously following that devotee who was distributing the books. And it showed that while you're making this effort, which is so dear to Prabhupada's heart and so dear to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and everybody in the parampara, you're being watched and you've been chosen to do it. If in the whole of London, where I presume you're going to be distributing books, or in other places in the UK, If Prabhupada wanted to liberate, if Lord Chaitanya wants to liberate all those living entities there, all those wonderful souls there with Krishna consciousness, whom is he going to depend on? It's each one of you. It's each one of you who has chosen to do this. It's depending. When I saw that, drama put up, and that particular scene, a screenshot of it remains even in my memory very vividly. Somewhere people are there all over the place. And there are so many children of Krishna. Mama ivam sajiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. And in London and UK, Lord Chaitanya is waiting to reach this out. Like you saw, the first I said, I order everybody to take this up and distribute it. If he wants people in London and anywhere, any other place to receive this, whom is he depending on? You, each one of you, all of you, to do it. And this is amazing that you can take part in it. You can take part in it, right? Somewhere, people are waiting. Everywhere people are waiting for want. People are dying for want of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada said in his Vyasa Puja address. They're all waiting. Again, the muse in me is stirred. Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bare. Full many of flowers born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness in the desert air. From memory of my younger days, I used to read this poem of Thomas Gray, elegy written in a country churchyard. There, he's speaking about the common folk. Somewhere, somebody is like a blossoming as a flower in the desert, or some gem in the depths of the ocean, unseen by anybody, unknown by anybody, rotting or blossoming for nobody seeing it and dying. So many spirit souls are following the regular codes of Maya, being born, jatasihi dhruvo mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha, being born and dying. But in comes a devotee with a book and changes his life forever. And each one of you is going to be an instrument in that. And that's the type of thought Prabhupada had. Out of great compassion for the people of this world, he took this arduous journey and this amazing task when he was 70 years old. And he was full of compassion for the people of this world. And he wrote for them. He wrote for their transformation. He worked for them. He gave himself to the whole world. Isn't it amazing? See this picture of Prabhupada with his eyes filled with tears. He's so happy that the mercy is going to reach people. And should we not do that? The books were so dear to him, and he asked us to distribute it. Obviously, we are going to do that. Obviously, we want to take part in the Sankirtan movement. It's historical, and it directly involves Krishna. And all these people will get these books. And like I mentioned, these are not ordinary books. Look at this. I just took a snap on my phone for this. This is a beautiful dialogue that you see here. Prabhupada is saying, sometimes I become surprised how I have written this. Although I am the writer, still sometimes I'm surprised how these things have come. Such vivid description. Where is such literature throughout the whole world? It's all Krishna's mercy. Every line is perfect. Conversation in Vrindavan, 28 June 1977. Krishna is perfect, and thus every line is perfect as you, Srila Prabhupada, are also perfect. This is his devotee saying that. Guru Das watched Srila Prabhupada laughing while reading his Krishna book. Guru Das, Prabhupada, you're laughing at your own books? Srila Prabhupada, I did not write these books. Krishna wrote them. Krishna sat here, and Prabhupada pointed to his shoulder. He wrote them. Srila Prabhupada, your dear most friend Krishna sat on your shoulder and spoke to you, just as Arjuna, dear most friend Krishna, stood before him and spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Do you know that I read my books every day? I learn something new every time I read. This is Prabhupada speaking, by the way. Do you know why? Because I did not write these books. Every time I sat down to write, Krishna appeared and dictated to me what to write. So I'm not writing. Krishna is writing. Conversation with Tamal Krishna Swami and another devotee. Isn't this amazing? It's amazing that Prabhupada is bringing to us this deep, secret understanding that it's actually dictated and he's writing it. And therefore, he doesn't think it's his books. Because in another dialogue, he said, have you seen any author reading his own books? He said, no. And Prabhupada said this again. I read these books because they're not written by me. They're written by Krishna. So these are amazing books. These are not just ordinary stuff. There's a nice pastime that relates. It's one of my most favorite pastimes. I speak about this every time I'm promoting book distribution. One of the disciples of Prabhupada come up to Prabhupada and while he's on the table, I think, writing or reading something, and he comes and sits down and pays his obeisance and says, Prabhupada, I love Bhaktivedanta Thakur. I love Bhaktivedanta Thakur's. He keeps going on Bhaktivedanta, and Prabhupada peeks from his specs, from across his spectacles. And he says that, he says, Bhaktivedanta Thakur's writings are very good. I like to read them, etc. And Prabhupada gives him a look. And then he goes ahead in his own absorbed way. He's saying that Bhaktivedanta Thakur is my favorite, most favorite author. And Prabhupada looks at him, puts his specs down and looks at him in his eyes and says, Bhaktivedanta Thakur is your second favorite author. That was an amazing piece. He's correcting him. It's a very, very amazing statement. No, he's not your number one favorite author. He's your second favorite author. That much importance Prabhupada gave to his books. He corrected him, meaning my own purport to that is, I introduced you to Bhaktivedanta Thakur. All the essence of Bhaktivedanta Thakur's teachings are there in my books. Read them first. I am your number one favorite author. So imagine how much value Prabhupada gave. If anybody else would say this, wow, he's saying this about the Purva Acharya. He's saying that put him in number 2, put me in number 1. How would he say that? Because he knows there is something about his books which he is empowered to do right. And he knows the importance and knows how it's going to transform human society. Therefore, he gave these instructions to us. Each and every shloka should be very, very scrutinizingly understood. That should be the first business in the temples of all these books. If we have got so many books, simply if you make arrangement for selling, not for understanding, then it will be simply materialistic. Both things must go on. And therefore, those who read Prabhupada's books, they actually feel a connection, personal connection with his books. Because of the personal connection, they tend to feel almost like Prabhupada felt, and the great anxiety to reach these books to others. Right? Those who read regularly, they're so much tied up book distribution. I'm sure all of you are doing it in a wonderful way, especially in this lockdown period, in this pandemic time. I think a lot of people are delving in like nothing deep into Prabhupada's books. And therefore we feel the intense desire, and therefore like I saw some of them saying it, that in this time of the pandemic, more than any time, it's so important to give these books, because I could see that that devotee, I forget his name, is feeling it intensely because he's delving deep into Prabhupada's books. We get a lot from reading Prabhupada's books. I don't want to go into that, that's a different whole path. But these are some of the affirmations. We need to affirm ourselves that we should read Prabhupada's books a little bit, because Prabhupada himself said he's reading his own books, and what it means is a lot. So if we read Prabhupada's books, I'll be able to do many things. It's for my benefit. It can influence me. I can have my daily rendezvous with Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada in his books. I can have my meeting with Krishna in his books every day. It's a given thing. is actually true. So it's not a waste of time. It's not a hindrance to any of my other activities. Rather, it makes everything exciting to execute, right? Reading Srila Prabhupada increases my taste of chanting. And by reading, I'll be inspired and enthused to distribute, and so on and so on. You can fill up these affirmations. And Prabhupada himself is saying that so deeply. So you will praise Prabhupada more than anything else if you read those books and follow those instructions, he said. And here is another quote that he wanted that all of my students should be very conversant with the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. They should read diligently for 1 or 2 hours and understand the subject matter from various angles. And here is quotes of Prabhupada, the frequency of him reiterating, emphasizing this again and again, the frequency and the mood and the method. Again and again, you must read as much as possible. You must read at least 3 hours a day. You must read one after the other, reading 24 hours, regularly, repeatedly, mood, as is spoken by Krishna, adeptly, attentively, carefully, critically, deeply, devotedly, etc. And the method from all angles of vision, from inspecting the subject matter from all angles of approach and savoring the new understanding minutely, scientifically, scrutinizingly, you name it, you have it all. And what happens when we don't read? Right? What happens when we don't read? That's very beautifully explained in the shloka. Ye leela amrita vinakaya yadi annapane tabe bhakter durlabha jivana tare ek bindhu pane utfulita tanumane hase khaya kuraye nartana. Men become strong and stout by eating sufficient grains, but the devotee simply eats ordinary grains but does not taste the transcendental pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Krishna gradually becomes weak and falls down from the transcendental position. However, if one drinks but a drop of the nectar of Krishna's pastimes, his body and mind begin to bloom and he begins to laugh, sing, and dance. And in the purport of that, Prabhupada is saying, if the devotees connected with the Krishna consciousness movement, if they fail to read the Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the books, after some time they'll simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. They will miss the opportunity to attain an eternal blissful life of transcendental pleasure. Very heavy purport. Importance of reading. Nothing more can be said about it. And it's not that Prabhupada is just an author who writes and asks us to distribute his books. He was a book distributor himself, right from day one. And he labored very hard. For 40 years, he did that. And then finally, he left on the Jaladuta. And I have a little emotional connection to this event. Cochin, where I publish books in the Malayalam language in Kerala, although I'm not from Kerala, I'm from Tamil Nadu. But I've been doing this with great attachment to it as an offering to Srila Prabhupada, because Prabhupada loves to see his books published and distributed. So I sort of oversee the translation, publication of books. And we produce almost all the books in the past 25 years. And we are just finally doing the Chaitanya Charitamrita. But we had the opportunity in 2015, 50 years of Prabhupada's visit to Cochin on Jaladuta. August 21st, 22nd, he came there. And Prabhupada, that place is especially important because that's where his Bhagavatam sets arrived from Bombay. And he was waiting for that. It docked there, the ship docked at Jaladuta there. And and it came there, his Bhagavatam sets. And he packed all of them and took them. And you know the famous saying of Prabhupada that he was asked, Swamiji, you're going to the Western world, you're going to America. And he commented saying that, no, the Srimad Bhagavatam is going. I am accompanying it. It was a very prophetic statement. It was a very deep statement. That Prabhupada said, I am just accompanying these Bhagavatam sets. Of course, we know he was book Bhagavata and person Bhagavata, and he was accompanying the sets in a completely different mood humility. So we worked hard to, within 5 years, accelerate the whole Bhagavatam production and produce, these 18 volumes, and offered to Prabhupada on the same day of August 21st, 22nd, 2015, which is exactly 50 years since he was there. We had a very big program, and we arranged 2 international conferences, and we had speakers from everywhere, and it was based on the Bhagavatam, one on the environment and environmental crisis and the climate change. And a Nobel laureate called Rajendra Pachauri earlier had come with us when we did this program. And this time we based it on the Bhagavatam, and the Union Minister of Environment came to inaugurate, and this is a big event, and we released the Bhagavatam on the 3rd day in a grand ceremony. It was a very emotional moment for many devotees, because right there at that time, 50 years back, nobody knew this monk, this mendicant, who was just very simply clothed, and he was boarding this Jaladuta with great hopes. And he said, nobody knew anything. But Srila Prabhupada went in that way and changed history. We know the rest is history. So we produced that Bhagavatam, and it was a very emotional moment for me to give it to Srila Prabhupada, and we made a big offering on that day. It was raining. I remember that all of our devotees gathered together privately. And we made a Samarpanam offering to Prabhupada. And I came to know how important it is on those days to Srila Prabhupada. Books are everything. I call it a Sankirtan government that Prabhupada has set up in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Of the books, by the books, for the books of Srila Prabhupada. This is so important, that books are the basis, Prabhupada said. And what does that mean? All our efforts are based on getting Prabhupada's books published, getting them read and understood, and then getting them distributed. We read the books, we speak the contents of those books to others, we distribute these books, and ours is Sankirtan governance. All of us together do it. Bahubir militva kirtayante. That's why Bhaktivedanta Thakur called this Brihad Kirtan. This is the louder Harinam Sankirtan distributing of the books. And all that information that Lord Chaitanya confidentially wanted to give us is put inside these books by Prabhupada. So every time a book lands on somebody's hands, that entire fortune is right in his hands. All that information is contained within that hands. So wonderful. So we are all together in it, and that's why I'm here today, to join you in that spirit. We are not, I often say, I do a session on Sankirtan or Samkirtan, somewhere isolated, cut off. We're not doing our own little something. We are a worldwide organization, and Prabhupada has galvanized devotees all over the world, and everyone in this month wants to satisfy Prabhupada, and we're all together, Sankirtan, together, distributing his books. And that's how Prabhupada wanted us to do it. And these books are containing Lord Chaitanya's whole mercy, which he wants to give to all the souls in Kali Yuga. So we are, by doing this, taking part in Lord Chaitanya's order, and that is the special mercy Prabhupada has extended to us. And we are helping him distribute it. And Lord Chaitanya is saying that I suspect that some would receive it and others would not. That's why it's required to not do only Sankirtan, but Sankirtan, join together and distribute these books. So this movement is not something cheap. The books are not something cheap. Prabhupada is saying that, if you want to stay in Krishna consciousness, you'll have to develop firm faith in Guru and Shastra. Therefore, you must study my books very scrutinizingly, follow the regulative principles very strictly, chant 16 rounds, etc. And don't take this moment as something cheap. You're part of an amazing, wonderful, highly sophisticated endeavor on the path of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to give mercy to everybody. And we're doing that. And it's a huge history, this book distribution. Last, I want to go through this for you briefly. The history, something, how you are taking part in history today in 12/12/2020. We're talking about this. It's a historical moment. In India, I'm just tracing the history of Lord Chaitanya. There was a Mughal period that's mentioned. Before the Mughal period, with this Lodi dynasty, somewhere in 1451. And the Mughal rule started with Babur in 1526. Lord Chaitanya's appearance is before the Mughal rule started in 1486. That's about 30, 40 years before. So Babur, he was known to be a tyrant, a son of a great tyrant, Taimur the Lame. And he was ruling, and after him came Humayun and all of them together, Akbar, Jahangir, etc. And here is Lord Chaitanya's disappearance. It's 1534. So Lord Chaitanya came before the Mughal period and disappeared during the Mughal period, during the period of somewhere on Humayun. And then you have Akbar meeting with Jiva Goswami in 1511 to 1596. I mean, somewhere in that period of Jiva Goswami. Akbar meeting with Jiva Goswami and giving him grants, and how Jiva Goswami preserved the writings of all the great Goswamis from Lord Chaitanya's time. We know that he instructed Rupa and Sanatan and all this, and they wrote under his order, and all that Jiva Goswami preserved. There was only one copy, mind you. There were copies being made by hand. It was not at all like what we are doing these days. So then came the British rule after the Mughal rule, and then you have the British East India Company, and all of you are very familiar with that. The British rule, and within the British rule is Bhaktivedanta Thakur, 1838 to 1940, and then comes Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Bhaktivedanta Thakur is known to have, he's like Varaha. He like pulled out the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava movement from the depths and reinstated. He found it so difficult even to find a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he finally got it, a tattered finally copy, and he read it, and then followed his great attachment to Lord Chaitanya and his teachings. And then came Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, his son, who took it further and established matas all over and tried to reach out to the Western world. And then came Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, rest is history, and this is a very powerful part of the history, because these three, I call them the very wonderful trio, they did amazing things, and Prabhupada carried the mantle towards the finish and established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the Vishwa Vaishnava Rajya Sabha that they wanted to establish. And the key thing, the arrowhead of the whole movement was his books. He focused on that a lot, kept writing. And if you look at the history of the whole thing, you will see the first generation, Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis and everybody. And then comes Jiva Goswami, Narottam, Shamananda, and everybody, all of them. Then the third generation is Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, etc. And Prabhupada managed to take it off and float it all over the world. And we are the fourth generation under the governing body commission. And all of you are taking part in that history, distributing books. The beautiful history of Narottam, Shamananda, and Srinivas taking those books under Jiva Goswami's order and carrying it all the way to Bengal, and how they safeguarded it. And then after that, how it was preserved and brought out by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur started the printing press, and he called that the Greater Mridanga, Brihat Mridanga, and Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada taking it all over the world to every nook and corner, from Australia to Africa to America to all the places. We have these books translated in so many languages. What an amazing work Prabhupada has done. The grand finish, of course, it's not finished, we're carrying on. And how much of value is there in these books? So I want to state that I am basically very much attached to Prabhupada's books, and I try my best to do the for the books, buy the books, of the books. I read them. I try to distribute them extensively, and I try to speak those contents from his books regularly, in Bhakti Shastra, in Bhakti Vaibhav, in any of these sessions. And I'm sure that all of you are also doing that. And you must be also experiencing what it means. And that's why you're also enthused and enthusiastic to actually distribute these books. And it's so vital and so important that people get these books. Whatever it takes, we must actually do that. And each one of you, I think, has taken that upon yourself to do this amazing service of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books and saving so many persons all over the world. So Gita Jayanti is very near, December 25th. It's also coinciding with Christmas here. And the Gita is like a crucial conversation where high stakes are involved and strong emotions of Arjuna you can see in place. I don't want to fight this war. Many things are happening there. And in secular terms, you can call that a crucial conversation. And that conversation enlightened so many people since so many ages. And we are dedicating this whole month as Gita month, Gita Jayanti month. And we're distributing these books extensively. We want everybody to read those books. And we want to take part in it by giving it to everybody. So live to give is such a wonderful caption to our effort. And all of you are not just ordinary souls living. You've been chosen by Lord Chaitanya. You've been chosen by Prabhupada to carry his books and distribute them. And I pray to Krishna, I pray to Prabhupada's lotus feet that he will give you success, and beyond the 50K that you're wanting to do, you will do in multiples of 50K. And sincere souls, all of you who are taking part in this effort, I pray that Krishna will bless you immensely, Prabhupada will bless you immensely, and you'll be victorious in distributing these books and landing it in the hands of so many conditioned souls. And I'm sure that it will explode in all those places, or you will actually go there and detonate it, and you may explode it, follow them up, and give them Krishna consciousness. And I'm sure you've worked all those things together. So I am so happy to be here with you, although I'm the least bit qualified to be here. I know that I need to do much more for Prabhupada's mission, but books are something dear to me that I must confess in this particular occasion. I have been very deeply involved in publishing the books, reading the books, and trying to distill the information for my own advancement, and also trying to share it with as many as possible. So thank you very much for giving me this privilege, this opportunity to address all of you. Again, although I may be least qualified to do so, if there's anything I have mentioned that shouldn't have been done, then please excuse me. All I want and desire is that all of you have great success in your book distribution during this pandemic. And I know you are employing some newer methods and well thought out and tried out methods, and there are great book distributors. I keep hearing about many of you, and I am praying and hoping that I'll also get to know the results and enjoy them. Thank you very much for this audience of yours. Thank you very much for being present and true to the timing given to me. It's 5:30 on my watch, which means 1 hour. I've been told that I should speak for 1 hour and take some questions from you. So I'll stop here. Thank you, and Hare Krishna again. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. Jai Live to Give Pandemic 2020 Marathon ki. Nittai Gaura Premanande. Hare Krishna. Oops. Okay, any questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for that wonderful session. I would now like to request Nihal Prabhu to invite questions. Devotees can either send a question by chat button or on the chat button, and Nihal Prabhu will read the questions out to Maharaj. You can also share some reflections. Reflections is not necessarily a question. It's something which stuck with you from Maharaj's session. So you can reflect back, which can help expand the conversation from Maharaj's side, and we can hear a bit more from Maharaj. So please feel free to send that to Nihal Prabhu. And Nihal Prabhu, over to you for the next 15-20 minutes. And again, I will log back in and invite Yamuneshwari Mataji to also say some words at the end. Over to you, Nihal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Divya Nama Prabhu. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vinoda Swami Maharaj. Really appreciate your wonderful words, your blessings, your wonderful presentation. And thank you for being with us today. Dear devotees on the call, we have over 96 devotees on the call. Please, can you put your questions or comments or realizations or anything you want to share with Maharaj, and I will present your questions to him. So if you can please start kindly putting your questions onto the chat window now. We'll spend about 15-20 minutes asking Maharaj some questions or comments or realizations. Maharaj, while we wait for the questions to come in, how was your Kartik?
Well, my Kartik was spent quarantined. The devotees in the ashram got COVID. They went and embraced COVID generously. So I got a high warning. I was told not to move out. I tried my best, but it's not so easy for me. I'm a bit of a loafer. I move around in many places. So I tried my best. I've quarantined myself. But we had a great Kartik online, and partially we opened the temple right up to the entrance, and there were a lot of devotees who came. We had Damodar Arati and Damodar Ashtakam being sung. Of course, I couldn't do the regular thing that I would be doing normally, sitting there and surrounded by everyone and doing wild kirtan and singing the Damodar Ashtakam. And we would go late into the night doing kirtan. All that was not possible, but it was a different experience. It was a lot online, but it went good. It was a different type of experience. But we were able to reach more people online and give more people experience of the Kartik feeling. Of course, there were devotees also who went to some people's houses, and we also had online visits to houses. We prepared their houses ahead, and we visited their houses online, and we sang Damodar Ashtakam with them. And then we took part in lighting lamps with them online, and they did it in their house. And so they were really super thrilled also that, many of the devotees visited houses, and we could have them experience Damodar Ashtakam and Damodar Arati. It was nice. It was a different experience. But of course, nothing like joining together physically and putting your hand on each other's shoulders and jumping and dancing and reaching out to Krishna in Harinam Sankirtan. We hope that will happen soon. We hope that 2021 Kartik will be like that. Yes, that's a short report on the pandemic Kartik in 2020 from different areas that I oversee here in different places. Yes, any other question?
Thank you for sharing, Maharaj. That's beautiful. We have a couple of comments. So someone has said, Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for sharing such informative presentation. Can really feel the importance and significance of book distribution and the urgency of distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. Your servant, Dipa Datri Gorangi Das. We have another message from Mukunda Haridas. Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much for a wonderful talk. Please share with us some of the methods devotees are using in India for book distribution during the pandemic.
Well, I think India is, there is unlimited possibilities of doing things in book distribution. I mean, India is a little easy to do book distribution. Quite easy to do many things. So it necessarily is not the greatest example for places like the UK and USA and other places where it's far more difficult to be able to reach out to the people locally and distribute. I think each one of the distribution that you do to an Englishman is like 100 times the value that they would do in India, equivalent, a weighted, estimate of that. However, in India, I think there's so many ways people are doing. What they are doing right now is also there's a lot of competition online distributing the books. So I think they are doing the Dhan program. I, for one, I am doing in my area in Kerala and in Western Tamil Nadu, where I'm the zonal secretary. I am pushing for sponsorships. And this time, because we can't reach out and be on the streets all the time, still some places in Kerala are in lockdown because of some other reasons also. So we are getting sponsorships from people and actually planning to go to schools and give out the books, going to colleges and giving out the books. We've already got sponsorships for, 1,000 sets of books, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna book and everything. Like, bundle 1,000 sets recently. And we are placing that in different school libraries. That's one thing that I'm doing directly. And we're also getting Bhagavad Gita sponsorships. So I don't know, we're also moving ahead and giving, the real hardcore book distribution, meeting a new person and giving him the book in his hands. That normally in the marathon period, I think that is much less done. But sponsorships and giving out sponsored books, like that seems to be where the numbers are, because it's about numbers, just talk to you, frankly, because they want to be right on top. So I think a lot of the devotees get sponsorships throughout the year in different places, and they bring it to effect on the December marathon month, and it pours in like nothing, lakhs of copies of Bhagavad Gita sponsored. So it's a different game. I'm in a different ball game here during this thing. At times when the pandemic, another normal times, we would have ecstatic book distribution. You'll have devotees going streets and meeting people and going to great corporations and having all the employees take Bhagavad Gita. This happens in Delhi, Bombay, and all these places where there are bigger cities. I know many years back, I started another type of book distribution, not during the marathon, but other times, that even in areas where there are places like smaller towns and smaller cities, areas, we would go and pre-book the Bhagavad Gita. Before the marathon month, we would start work 3 months before, 2 months before. And we have a little write-out, and the person goes with only one Bhagavad Gita and one write-out. And there's an agreement in that. And we give those books on installment to all these government offices and small-time employees. And we tell them, you take this book now, you need to pay only 50 rupees. And I come every month and collect an installment from you. For the next 4 months, we had a whole lot of devotees going out. and booking up this. And there's a huge number of them they could book because they just carried the book and carried one sample copy and showed, this is the book you'll get. Would you like to take that? I'll come on your payday, on the day you get your payment, and you can give me the first installment. And if you want to pay the whole amount, you get this concession. You get it at 50% off. So they would bloat the price a little bit if you're taking it on installments, and they'll cut it down to 50% less if you take it at one shot on that day. It was like 100 rupees or something those days. And it was easy to give. So you had, thousands of copies booked. And on the day, the first payday, December 1st, they would go to all the offices, and in each office they would be giving 500, 600 Bhagavad Gitas away as your first takeoff on the books. And, this way, in the next 4 months, they would have thousands of copies distributed. And by meeting that person 3 or 4 times, every time they go to meet, they give them a little prasadam, give them incense sticks as a gift, and take their other installment. So this way they would meet them 4 or 5 times, and by that time they've already started reading, and we can cultivate them. And you give them your cards, and a lot of them would join your Bhakti Vrikshas and your weekly meetings in the temple and things like that. So that was what we called a value-added book distribution. I don't think they're doing that much now. I'm also not supervising that. But that was started, and in the rural areas, that was quite successful. In the cities, I think they still go to the big corporations and find that easier, and they distribute the books like that, especially in the marathon. Other times, there are all sorts of methods are being used. What to say? Because you specifically asked me about the marathon, basically marathon is, a lot of it is sponsorships. And because we use the Gita Jayanti sentiment, we say it's Gita Jayanti, and this is a great month for you to sponsor this thing. And it's pandemic, and people are desperately wanting this Gita, and you have it, you have the capacity to do that. And, when middle class households give 100 Gitas, I sponsor. 50 Gitas I sponsor. You get quite, pretty good. Because the book prices are very low in India. We keep it low, pretty low. And so it's easy to sponsor. And they get those numbers. So in bulk, we get, and I'm planning, I think some of my temples are planning to have this. That's why I asked, Harinama, Krishnanama, what's his name? Divyanama, to send me some leaflet about your kids contest that you're doing. We do that also. And we are having gatherings in schools and have people sponsor Bhagavad Gita for the children. We have Gita Jayanti program for them, and they learn to chant some of the shlokas. And in some places we do a whole 1-week course for them, taking 1 hour a day. And we teach the 5 topics of the Bhagavad Gita briefly to them. So there's a whole mix of a lot of things, and many people are doing many different types of permutations and combinations of all these different methods. According to how your place is, where you're preaching, if you're preaching to a small group, you're in a small town, you're a city, you're in a village, you're in the city, main city, the metropolitan areas, then they adopt those methodologies accordingly. And it's quite, if anybody puts an effort, that's enough. All that's needed is effort. You don't need to be very highly creative, and people take Gitas even now. Some of them take Gitas, but now I am specifically focusing more on following up on the Gitas that has been distributed and trying to get the data and approaching them and doing sessions for them. Because we're slowly, at least in my area, I'm trying to turn into a value-based book distribution. That to have the details of the person who has done this great activity of buying a book, Bhagavad Gita. We want to have his details, and if we have that data with us, then on WhatsApp and other forums, we are actually getting them, those who are willing. And then we have started a whole, in the local language, we have started something called Gita Saram, Essence of the Gita courses. And many of them are joining up, and they become potential book distributors. So rather than focusing only on just distributing and getting away, I think now we are trying to make book distributors by going back to those people who took the books. And we saw that at least 5% of them are very much interested. And about 15% of them are interested but don't have that time very much. And about 50% of them, if they are pushed, they will actually show some interest. And the rest of them are like, I don't have the time, don't come back. Don't come to me again, like that. So we did a little study. I had these cards put inside. So we are moving into trying to create book distributors, which I think that will logarithmically expand, not just arithmetically, it will logarithmically expand the book distribution if you create book distributors and each one of them distributes, because that type of thing may be interesting to me. So these are some of the takes of what can be done and what's going on. I'm just, from the top of my mind, just speaking. I hope that helps you in some way. If there's any specific question, then I could answer more. Okay.
Thank you,
There's
Maharaj.
something here.
Thank you for sharing and clarifying so vividly, deeply, and beautifully. We have about 8 more minutes. So we have another question that's come in from Nikunja Sakhi Devidasi. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept our humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Can you share a most memorable Sankirtan pastime which you come across while distributing Srila Prabhupada's books? Thank you so much for your blessing and inspiring talk for Live to Give campaign. Thanks.
Thank you, Nikunja Sakhi Devidasi, for that question. Well, there's a lot that I can think about. But 2 things that I can think happened in recent times is, as soon as the lockdown was announced, I sort of did a 18-day session on Bhagavad Gita. I was getting introduced to how to do things online. I was pretty much a novice. I'm not very active on social media and things like that. So I was forced to do that. So I did an 18-day session, and people, from all over different parts of the world, wherever I've been traveling, they came in and we did an 18-day session. At that time, an amazing thing happened. People who knew me for long and were not able to connected with me. And 2 instances I'll say out of the many that stood out is, one was one girl who is a software engineer. She joined in, I think, somewhere from outside India. And she was sending me messages after the 2nd day on WhatsApp. And she said, do you remember me? And so I just deep down somewhere 20 years back, she was a student somewhere here in South India in the school. Maybe Yamaneshwari would know her, which is, I don't know. But she said that I was given a Bhagavad Gita. I came to the temple long, but I was given a Bhagavad Gita. I never looked into it. And now while you were speaking, I connected it. It must be the same organization, and that must be the same Gita. And the memories of her visit and all came back to her. And she attended 2 of the sessions, and she was referring to Bhagavad Gita online in the Veda base or something. Then she thought that, wow. And she looked into her shelf and probed deep and took out the Gita. It was still in its plastic sheath, that covering. And she said she tore it apart and she opened it. And within the next 18 days that we did the Gita, she finished reading the entire Gita. And she said, I took it so lightly then when I visited, but now I understand why you were, so many years back, I heard you speaking the same thing. I didn't think it was so important then to me. But now in the lockdown, many things are happening. And the same book I took out and the same person is speaking to me. And the same things are happening to me in a much more intense way. And she did the whole Gita within 18 days. She read it chapter by chapter. Every day's chapter, she read it. So that was amazing. I thought that those books are real bombs, at the right time she took. So, and after that, she's been following me and she's chanting, I think pretty much 16 rounds. And She's taking part in all the follow-up programs and everything. There's another person who I thought he used to come here. Is from a college right opposite our temple. We have a big expanse of a land here, about 8.5 acres, plumb in the center of the city. We're building a very big temple here. Right now, the temple work is still going on. And we also have a community set up in 3 acres of housing and everything. And we are lined up with about 13 colleges on the main road, which is just about 1 kilometer from our temple, right on the main road, one of the main arteries of this place. Coimbatore is like the second biggest city in Tamil Nadu. After Chennai is like the biggest city. It's an industrial city and known for its education. And so a lot of youth come down here. So this person was studying engineering here in a prestigious institution. And he used to come to take prasadam on Sunday evenings. We had a youth program and everything. So he seems to have met me. I don't remember his face. But after this session, he called up and he told my assistant that I have to speak to Bhaktivedanta Swami. Please tell him I'm speaking from America and I have to speak to him. Anytime he is free in the 24 hours, I'm ready to speak to him. Then I said, I'm just a little busy. I'll, connect with him. Please tell him to send me a message and then I'll talk to him. But he sent me a message and I couldn't attend to him. But he insisted for 3 days continuously. He called up. And then finally I spoke to him while I was having lunch on the phone because I didn't have time to. And at lunch he told me, I think you know me. I won the prize in the Gita competition that you held in the schools long back. You will not remember me, but because I've grown, I have 3 children now. And he said, do you know that you told me to chant 1 round? I'm chanting that even now. But the only thing I've not done is read the Bhagavad Gita, which I got as a gift from you, as got as a prize from you. But now I attended this session and I've started reading. And it's so amazing that, I felt I should have read it then only, fully. But he did not read the whole Gita, but he read a guide that we gave and he attended the classes and he did very well. But he never got to read the whole Gita. But so I connected with a lot of these people and all of them got to read Prabhupada's books again with greater fervor and greater push. So that's something that I thought I should tell you. Another thing that I thought I should tell you for the next 2 minutes is, another amazing thing happened to me is that while we were producing this Bhagavatam that I mentioned for Prabhupada, and I was so much involved in getting it done and supervising it all over Kerala. We had 25, 30 devotees proofing, checking, doing the DTP and designing and everything. Of course, one Prabhupada disciple told me that, but you should know that Prabhupada got it done in 2 months. He got the Chaitanya Charitamrita done in 2 months. Then I said, yeah, it took 5 years for us or even more. But what happened was I didn't have the money in the BBD to do it. And it required quite some money. And I went around asking, and for some reason, which I don't want to detail here, I didn't get any money from any BBT or anything. Something amazing happened one fine day in Kerala when on a visit. A book publisher who was a book distributor for me came and said, why don't you do a pre-publication on your Bhagavatam and get pre-orders? And then I said, can I get money also? Can I take money? He said, you can take money also. He gave me an amazing idea. And I floated a scheme called Rasamalayam, wherein I went around all over the Gulf areas where there were a lot of Keralites and yatras that were there. And I was able to sell 1,000 Bhagavatam sets and take the money before it was even produced, before it was even published. It was an amazing thing. So I got more than 70% of the money I needed. And this I know is an intelligence given to me definitely by Prabhupada's inspiration. He said, don't worry, my books have to be produced. You will get the money. You don't have to think about the money. And I know at that time, my hair stand on end if I think about that. When I mentioned this to Giriraj Swami in the airport, I saw him, I think somewhere in Bombay. he embraced me when he sat down, listened to me, and he said, embraced me and said, this is amazing. If Prabhupada were to hear this, he would be so happy, because 1,000 sets were sold of the Bhagavatam before they were even printed. Then I printed them. Then I said, come and take it, all your sets. I said, no, let it be there. They will take it. And they, over a period of time, over a period of 1 year, they took the sets from all over and distributed to many of them. They collected the funds and everything necessary. So I had a realization that if you want to do it, you can do it. You know, Nike shoes, just do it. That's their advertisement. You just desire to do it, and it's going to happen, because, like I mentioned, the whole parampara and Prabhupada is watching. So just do it. Just desire to do it. Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. December pandemic marathon ki jai. All Manor and UK devotees ki jai. And my sincere, humble prayers to their lordships for showering all their mercy on you for your great success. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. There were some last-minute questions. So sorry, devotees, if we didn't get to answer your questions. Please head over to schoolofbhakti.com/community, where we have a Q&A community. You can also follow Maharaj on YouTube, Facebook, and Maharaj has a WhatsApp group. The details have been posted onto the chat window. Maharaj, there were many kind words of appreciation for today's presentation and for your overflowing with nectar, and the devotees are drinking it and rolling around on the floor in ecstasy. So just wanted to share that. And we'll now pass the mic over to Divya Nama Prabhu.
Okay, so can I take
Thank you so much,
Divya Nama?
Maharaj. Thank you very much for your wonderful association. That was a very profound talk you gave. Especially, I was very much appreciating how Prabhupada was always in bliss, coming from spiritual world. But I think when he talked about or heard about his books, or if a book was published, he went into ecstasies, as we could see. And seeing those pictures with such a beautiful oceanic smile, as we call it, of Srila Prabhupada, was really utter worldly, Maharaj. So thank you for exporting our consciousness to something which is so dear to Srila Prabhupada. I'm humbly and gratefully indebted for your association. Without any further ado, I want to invite Yamuneshwari Mataji. Prabhu, if you can try to unmute Yamuneshwari Mataji from the chat group, because Mataji has such a strong bond with Maharaj from very early ages, as Maharaj himself was explaining. I would like her to say a few words from her side before we conclude today. In the meanwhile, while you're doing that, I want to remind devotees that we still have another 14 days of marathon to end. So please keep working hard on the Shastra Dhan. You're all doing a wonderful service. Ashish Prabhu is coordinating it in East London with many other devotees. So kindly carry on supporting him in this wonderful work he's doing. And we'll get there. Our target is 35,000 Gitas and 15,000 other books. So I'm praying to Srila Prabhupada. And now that we heard from Maharaj, there is every possibility that not only we meet, but we should be able to smash that goal of ours. So over to you, Yamuneshwari
Jai.
Mataji. Jai, thank you so much, Maharaj.
I think you'll do it.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Divinam Prabhu, thank you very much for organizing this wonderful, inspiring session. And I'm personally so grateful to His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. Maharaj, please accept our respectful obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I really feel very blessed and very, very happy to have your wonderful association today. And as usual, it is so inspiring. And I remember 20 years back, it is the same inspiring talks which you give every Sunday, which was our, I would say, energizer. We come every week and hear your class, we get energized, and, from school to college, and then even coming here, that's a great inspiration, Maharaj. Not only for me, many of my friends, now they are in around the world, different places, taken your words very seriously. and serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So we are eternally grateful to you, Maharaj. Thank you so much, and please shower your blessings so that we can serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada and please you. And we would like to give you a very wonderful news for this marathon. Thank you so much.
Haribol, thank you very much for your words of recognition and encouragement on my services and my influence on your spiritual life. I am just a very small instrument. So I'm very happy to be here with all of you devotees. It's really exciting. Thank you very much. On my brief visit to London, I always like to be there because I consider this one of the outreach capitals of the whole ISKCON world, doing pioneering outreach. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to be here with all of you. And I can smell you, and I'm getting inspired. I want to turn around and talk to people about what happened in the Manor on 12/12/2020, and I'm going to have them distribute more books because of this. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.